Today's guest, Scarlet Ibis James, is not just an award-winning author, but a bridge between islands and boroughs, between generational patterns and conscious choices to break free. An author who blends Sawa's soca rhythms with New York's subway symphonies. She's won the 2025 NYC Big Book Award for Multicultural Fiction, first place in multiple 2025 International Firebird Book Award categories, and earned gold from Literary Titan. From a Harlem apartment turned writing sanctuary, she hunts down the perfect rootie in Queens while crafting stories about love's many complicated faces. Her debut work, Scarlet Birthright, explored abandonment across generations. Now she's releasing Beyond First Glance and the marriage in crisis novella, Love in the Dark. Welcome, Scarlet, to a conversation about choosing differently than those who came before us. Greetings, listenership. Welcome to TLC, Tropical Literature Creatives, the podcast where we interview authors of Caribbean heritage about themselves and about their literary works. Some of them you've heard of, but some of them you'll be hearing about soon enough. Today we have with us our strategic storyteller, Miss Scarlet Ibis James. And during the course of the conversation, I hope you all would come to the same conclusion that I have, that she isn't just a regular storyteller, that things that she applies herself to are usually with, as I said, strategy, with precision, and with an intended outcome. So without further delay, ladies and gentlemen, Scarlet Ibis James.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so nervous, proud, eager to be on the Tropical Literature Creators podcast.
I mean, if it's any consolation, before every conversation, I'm a little bit nervous myself. So, I don't know, maybe it's a thing, cameras, lights, etc. But for the persons who are tuning in and who are just curious as to the name, I mean, can you give some insight into that, Scarlet Ibis James?
Certainly, yes. So it is a pseudonym. It's my pen name, and I chose it deliberately.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in that scarlet, the scarlet ibis bird is the national bird of Trinidad and Tobago. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, grew up in Trinidad and Tobago, from Sawo, born and bred. And um, and I chose scarlet ibis because it was such a part of my upbringing. And many years ago, I think more than once, I've gone to the Caroni River and I've seen the amazing view of them coming in at night from Venezuela at the dusk time. And that concept of coming home is what I write in. Writing is like a coming back home to me. My stories are rooted so much in my life in Trinidad or the memory of Trinidad or the spirit of Trinidad and Tobago. And James is my mother's maiden name. It's
Mm-hmm.
my maiden name. It's my grandmother's maiden name. And it's that legacy of women who perhaps never really got their father's names, which is also a very important part of who I am as a person.
Okay, okay. Well, thanks for that. I guess it just gives us a lot of insight into the character. And I guess over time, when it is that we get into your writing, for persons who buy the book, I recommend it.
Thank
Um,
you.
you can see that you put of yourself, that you pour of yourself into your writings, not just, with regards to the name, etc. But I mean, I'll talk a bit more about it in the interview as we go along. I don't want to, spoil the thing just yet. But you've come a long way from Trinidad, San Juan or Sawa as we call it.
Sour.
Sawa.
Yes.
To living in the States, I mean, when I visit your website or writings about you, you talk about, trying to find the perfect route here and stuff across there, to, maintain your Caribbean heritage, of course. But
Trin City and Queens.
Um, but like I said, you've come a long way and you've won a number of awards. One of them being the 2025 NYC Big Book Award for Multicultural Fiction, among others. So I'm just curious, in for being recognized by these organizations and winning these awards, how has it affected, one, your writing, and two, how it is you see yourself as an author?
I I First of all, I want to say thanks to all the organizations that I've applied to because you do have to apply to them
Hmm.
and submit your book. And when you give of your offering to these organizations, it's almost like you're giving yourself, giving what you've produced, and asking them. Perhaps is it worthy, but also how do I compare? And it's funny, you know what I always, because we talked together before at Scribbles and Quills in Trinidad when I went for the Trinidad book tour.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what I love about your questions is that it's things that I never have really thought about. And so, um, what I would say is that I am an author, I am a storyteller. These things come to me, these stories come to me, and I put them out into the world really because I believe they're going to reach someone. I feel like it's divine in nature, and I feel that when it gets to the reader that needs to hear whatever it is message that they need, that it will get there. What I've found as an independently published author, it is very tough to get your book into the consciousness, into the awareness of many people. It
Hmm.
does take, you would say marketing, but it's really making sure that you're able to do what the established publishers do, publishing houses do, whether they're big or small,
Yeah.
in that they have these connections to all these places where it goes out. But as
Hmm.
an independent author, there are only a limited number of avenues to have your book amplified. Tropical Literature Creatives, of course, is one of those avenues. I thank you for being a supporter of me from the beginning with Scarlet Yearnings. But awards are another way of amplifying who you are and that your book has value to readers. And and I have submitted to a number of different, I am selective
Hmm.
to a number of different organizations that publish and evaluate independently published authors, as well as some like this one that
Yeah.
does both traditionally published, as well as published. So the New York City, and of course I'm living in New York City, I had to apply for this one. And I was really delighted that I was able to win the award in the multicultural category. So really, to answer your question, it was strategic. You gave it that
This-
because I
yeah.
wanted my books to have a platform beyond perhaps even the social media,
Yeah.
where bookstores, people interested in books, interested in literature would attend to. And these award programs, whether you're a finalist or a winner or submitted, they publicize your books in many more forums. And so it extends, it amplifies information about my book
Okay.
and my
And
books.
no, I like how you put that books because persons may think it's just one book that you're popular for, but if it is that they go to your website, they see it's like it's a lot. It's we thought that it was just one because we've been hearing about one, maybe two, Yearnings and Birthright, but here it is, we see all of this, and we're like, we didn't know that she did all this kind of writing. Yeah.
I do. I love writing. When I get into the flow state and it's just going through, it's wonderful. So many stories come out. I participate in generative writing workshops. One in particular is the Fellowship of the Griot that
Mhm.
brings together writers from brown and black communities all over the world.
Yeah.
It's Saturdays. I encourage, writers to join us. You can find them on but I talk about them all the time. But they have a link tree, Fellowship of the Griots. But what I find is that the stories knock on me. They knock on me. The characters knock on me
Yeah.
very often, and and I have to get their stories out. So I started on medium.com. I still do publish some on medium.com. The
Mm-hmm.
spirit of the platform has changed a lot, and I'm refinding my way there,
Yeah.
but I mostly go to support other writers that I've met there and that are still on that platform. But I love communicating via Substack. Um, I it is a social media for people who write, is
Yeah.
what I think, and who have stories to tell, whether that be in the published form or just to get their thought leadership and opinions out. But to me, the what I get from Substack is very positive.
Yeah.
But yes, I do write. I started with Scarlet Yearnings. Out of Scarlet Yearnings, the first story from that collection came Scarlet Birthright that started just as an answer, a call and answer. Um, and it started as just a short story, but it bloomed because it was so emotional. And I didn't know that I was going to go on that journey, to be quite honest,
Mm-hmm.
when I
Mm-hmm.
started. But I go wherever it leads me.
Okay. No, what I like is that, I mean, you said you like the questions that I ask, and some instances I like how it is that you answer the questions even before I ask them, because I like how it is that you even give insight to the persons who are authors who are listening here, because you mentioned Medium, you mentioned Substack, and we come from a generation, I mean, don't say we, right now we have a generation of writers where things are a bit different, and now they have options or platforms that they can submit their work to so that it could be
Yes.
available to a wider readership. So yeah, I mean, you're
Mhm.
just dropping gems for the persons who are listening.
I've
Uh,
got to say one other thing. There's another platform called Wattpad.
mhm,
So I am of an older generation,
mhm.
but Wattpad is very popular as well for younger people who like fan fiction, who like to write stories about the stories that they're hearing and read stories. So Wattpad, I think, is a really important platform as well. I started there, but I like the community of Substack. Substack took over.
I mean, we're talking about the writers, but you mentioned something before, and I want to just go back just a little. You mentioned marketing, etc., how you came to
Mm.
Trinidad, how you did your tours, etc. No, I just wanted to just give a little bit of insight on that because, again, this is something for the authors because one of the things that authors have learned is that writing is part of the journey. And it may seem to be the most difficult part for some persons because books take like about, in some instances, there was an author who finished a book in like about a couple of weeks, and I know authors who have been working on books for close to 10 years. So
Yeah.
everybody's journey is different. But after the book is written comes the marketing, etc., because the book doesn't just promote itself. So just give us some insight into your book tour, your Trinidad tour, in terms of promoting your book, etc.
That is so true. The writing is a part of it. The marketing and the
Mm-hmm.
getting your word out is a
Mm-hmm.
much bigger part. It started when with Scarlet Birthright, it was really important for me to get those books into the Trinidad market because it is born in Trinidad, right? That story.
Yeah.
And so a friend of mine, a fellow writer, Amanda Karishi, had suggested when she knew I was coming to Trinidad earlier this year, um, that I reach out to Paper-Based Bookstore in
Yes, yes.
advance and see if I can get my book in there. So I wrote them. I sent them an email via their platform. But then I also said, well, let me see what other bookstores they are. When I was coming up, it was like Charon's that I used to get my Mills and Boons and different. It was right
Mm-hmm.
down the street. That
Yeah.
was that was where I went, right? I don't
Still
even
there.
recall a real like a bookstore. And Charon's was mostly academics, but they had the other stuff we wanted, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when I did just an internet search, I discovered Scribbles and Quills, and so I also reached out to Radia Ali from Scribbles and Quills, and both of them were very gracious and generous, and they present my book to the Trinidad and Tobago population via consignment, so
Mm-hmm.
it worked out really well. However, what I noticed immediately is that Scribbles and Quills had lots of writer events. And so I was coming in April and I said, oh my gosh, I would love to do an event. Like I would love to be at one of the events.
Yes.
And at that time, it was too close because sometimes when I come to Trinidad, I come for a very short period of time. I come
Mm-hmm.
every year, but I come for a very short period of time. So it wasn't enough time. And then, so that was already on my mind. I couldn't do it at Scribbles and Quills when I came. And
Yeah.
then when I went to paper-based, Simone Camps there said to me immediately, so I'm handing her my book and she says, when can you do a book signing?
Mhm.
So
Just like
I
that.
thought,
Just
I
like that.
just like that. And I thought, okay, I really need to think about this. I have to come back. And so even in that very short conversation with Simone and I, we decided on October because she had already had writers, I think, slotted. And then October would have been a great time for me. And then I contacted Scribbles and Quills subsequently and said, I'm coming. I'd like to do something. And at that point, they had the sips and read concept, and that's
Yes.
where it started. So to me, I had the bookends, right? So I actually did the first one at Scribbles and Quills, and then I did the paper-based. I scheduled the paper-based one for the when I was leaving. So I came in, went to Scribbles and Quills,
Hmm.
did paper-based, left for the airport.
Hmm.
But in the meantime, I also wanted to see what other things were going on,
Yeah.
and just to participate in the bookish community in Trinidad. It is so vibrant. It is so amazing. And so I reached out to Arlene Holman, who has chapters and chats 868, and
Yes.
she was having an event. And again, I just wanted to participate. I'm very
Hmm.
humble,
Hmm. Hmm.
I
Hmm.
feel, in my humble opinion. But but I said I would love, she has an event where you read for about an hour with a lot of people. Everybody brings their own book, BYOB. And she was having it at the Normandy at the Bird and Palm Cafe. And I thought, how lovely is that? And so I asked her, and then she said, well, since you're an author, it would be great for you to do some readings from your book. And maybe the second half, instead of talking about the books that people read, we could have an author interview. And I agreed. And so that was how that came to be.
Hmm.
Last thing, so the book tour. So Latoya Roberts, who's wrote a book of poetry, and also The Tide Reclaims is her latest novel. I
Yes.
was watching her and her marketing and how she really leverages social media, but also she did a grand launch. She's done interviews, she did different things. So, author to author, I think is a very strong community. It's a very generous community. And so I reached out to her and I said, hey, I'm coming to Trinidad and Tobago. I would love to partner with you to
Yeah.
help me reach more of the Trinidad literature community. And from her, I realized I didn't have Tobago really covered. Although Scribbles and Quills and Paper Base would ship to Tobago, I didn't have anything in Tobago bookstores, and Latoya did. And so she, along with Wendy Yaching, who's another author who resides in Tobago, they helped me triangulate to Heritage Haven on the Esplanade in Scarborough, and then also Sure Things in Lambeau. And I contacted both bookstore. Well, Sure Things is definitely an amazing restaurant. I ate there. It was
Hmm.
amazing.
Hmm.
But they sell books and other things made by locals. And so both of those places were very generous in having me put my books in those bookstores. So I accomplished so much more, but it was very organic. It
Yes.
was driven, I think, by the generosity of all the people involved in the
Yeah.
bookish community in Trinidad and Tobago. And I'm entirely grateful. While I was, and just after as well, it continued. And so Konkina is from TV6, I think Gael, right? And she also does broadcasts on TikTok. And
Yeah.
she invited me to her platform, so I chatted with her as well. And then TTT, I did an interview as well to sort of round off everything after the book tour as well. So yeah, that was my tour of my island, my
Yeah.
islands,
Yeah. I mean, a lot of
back in
touring.
October.
Yeah, a lot of touring, a lot of promoting. I mean, who says that you can't do both?
Absolutely, and
Mhm.
enjoyed. It was lovely to meet people. It was so wonderful to meet people who have read my book to hear about how the story resonated with them. It
Yes.
is the story of so many Trinbagonians, and
Yeah.
everybody has their own version of the story, but it really resonated. And to me, Scarlet Birthright is not just about this happened to me, but one I would say Instagram bookish talker,
Hmm.
Trini, what's her name?
Trini
Trini
Girl
Reads.
reads.
Yes, Trini Girl Reads. She had a very good comment for me, and she said that Trisha was better because of where she grew up with her grandparents. And I said, yes, yes. And that is the absolute truth. And so, what I hope by the end of the book people really get is, you know, you hold on to these things as young people and even as older people, you keep
Yeah.
holding on to these concepts, but you have to at some point realize that giving grace to these people who might have influenced your story
Yes.
lies in understanding it could not have been any other way. And you wouldn't be the person that you are unless you have gone through what you went through.
Mm.
So it's wonderful.
No, it is. And I mean, we said it before, and I would say it again. I mean, your books, reading your books is sort of like encountering an iceberg. Again, I can't think of a better way to describe it. You think that it's one way on the surface, but the more you get into it, there's so much depth to it. And that kind of leads me into the series of questions that I have next. Because first off, in relation to how the story is told, it's not just told from the perspective of one person, it's told from the perspective of several persons. The daughter who's left behind, the father who is absent, the insecure stepmother, the grandparents who are the caretakers as well. You're told the story from different perspectives. And at first, you're left with certain points of view because that point that you mentioned about grace, it is so profound because when I read it the first time and we had the conversation for the first time, I had a particular point of view. But even up to today, as we're about to have the conversation again, or we're having the conversation again, I read it again and I'm like, I think I changed my mind about this. But no, seriously, because I mean, first off, why you choose this way to tell this story? Because I mean, I'm not too sure if it was intended, but the way that it was told was just so fitting.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So someone else had that question at the paper-based event.
Hmm.
It was deliberate. I have always found to me that especially in this type of story where you're going over what a young person may have seen
Hmm. Hmm.
or from a young person's vantage point, Trisha's vantage point at this point, where it started in Scarlet Yearnings, yeah?
Hmm.
But I've always found that so let me take and I'm verbose. I apologize. I'm a look, it is very hard for me to be short-winded. But Scarlet Yearnings, I wrote, is a book of 12 short stories. Most of them end on a cliffhanger. It was how I wrote on Medium.
Hmm.
It was the way I wrote on Medium, and it was sort of an accepted norm in Medium. When
Yes.
you're writing in a book, I quickly discovered when I started getting reviews that people don't like that. Especially when you don't have, I had no intention of writing anything else after Scarlet
Now, who tell
Yearnings
you to say,
related to
who tell you to do that now?
I, well, apparently my readers and reviewers all said they wanted more. They
Hmm.
wanted more,
Hmm.
period. And so almost immediately, so I had like early readers, ARC readers, advanced
Yes.
readers, right? And and I started hearing this and the idea started coming, okay, maybe I need to tell the other side of the story. So I give in most of the stories in Scarlet Yearnings, I give one perspective
Yes.
and I said, well, let me give the other side. So Scarlet Birthright started off as just Jerome's view of the meeting his daughter for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I realized quite quickly as I started writing his two things. Two things were quite evident. Number one, I had a lot of anger towards my father. a lot. And as a, I'm not afraid to say, 55-year-old, that surprised me. It really did. And I didn't realize it. So it came out in how I wrote him the
Hmm.
very first draft of what that story was, that scene. The second thing is in I also realized that I couldn't just tell about that scene. I had to tell what happened before. And that's really the genesis of really going back to when he met Trisha's mother, and coming all the way through and almost rewriting based on that journey I took.
Yeah.
Because my father is deceased now, and Jeremy is based loosely on him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I couldn't go back to ask him, but I had to put all those, I had to now get into that time, that space. It was not until I was writing that story that I realized that my own father was 19 years old. I think
Yeah.
of my 21-year-old son, and I realized, oh my God, like I cannot expect, or even when my older son was 21, or when my nephew was 21, like I couldn't expect that they would really have it all together.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as a child, it was just daddy to me. It was just father. And so in the journey, let me just say, if the readers took a journey, I took a journey as well through the writing of his story.
Yeah.
And then of course, I had to also wonder about the other characters. And so this whole thing of there's never one side to the story. There's never there's never one angle. If you're looking at it from one person's point of view,
Yeah.
somebody else is going to see it entirely differently from their lens and their experience. And so I wanted it was initially not deliberate, but then it was. So then I had to tell Jerome's whole story. I had to, at least through the relationship, I also had to tell the other very important story in that, which is his wife, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who is not Trisha's mother. And then I had to show glimpses of the grandparents, although the story is not about the grandparents. Um, it was really about Trisha and her father, but they also played a role, and I had to show what they were going through all the way through. So it started off as not a deliberate, but then it was.
No, and I think the story is all the more better for it. And I want to just touch on Jerome there a bit because I think you had mentioned in Scarlet Yearnings that was the genesis of the thing, and then for Scarlet Birthright, and I think that's one of the major things. I mean, and I say major things when it is I go through the book, you could say that's one of the major events that takes place, the actual meeting, and so much happens there because they're all there at the table or they're eating together, and one of the things that stands out is how much his daughter resembles her mother. And it is unmistakable. It is haunting. And we have Jerome there, and he's feeling a how. I mean, at the same time, and then we have Margaret who's there. And I mean, despite they building a life together, they migrating, they actually having a daughter. It's like they come and they make a full circle back to Trinidad and they meet Trisha again. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know. Your writing is really, yeah, I don't know how to describe your writing. It's just the only way you don't make things easy. Things are just complicated the way that life usually is. And that's true. There's like no, it's not a Saturday morning cartoon where you have like a good guy, a bad guy, a start or a finish. Things are always happening and you always have to accept, adapt, and address, and in some instances move on. And I really
Mhm.
appreciate that about your writing, not just in this book, um, Scarlet Yearnings as well, even though you indicated that it was just like one-off short stories. I couldn't help but appreciate that because persons may have been upset, but at the same time, I accepted it because again, I'm like, that's life. I mean, you don't really get like a final resolution to the story. In some instances, you have to make the end of the story yourself.
Yes, and you have to imagine it yourself where it would go. I am, however, trying. So you said you went to my website, right?
Yeah, yeah.
ibisjames.com.
Yes, yes, yes.
And you saw in there that there's a new book that
I,
I'm working
oh,
on.
I saw several books
Yes.
that, I mean, I have to admit that I have to apologize because the reason I'm apologizing is that I didn't do proper homework. Because when we had that conversation, I referred to Margaret as the Wicked Witch of the West Indies because that was my first reading and experience
That's,
with her. Yeah, that was
yes.
my first reading. And then after the second reading, I'm like, you know what? Let me, like you said, give the character some grace. And then I was like, okay, I started to see things differently. But lo and behold, I go to your website and look at what I come across. Margaret's story, the stepmother's truth. And I'm like, you know what, Kevin,
But
you do.
it all evolved. Can I
Yeah.
tell you? Listen, I tune into what my readers because this is a writing for me is a community spiritual event, not event even, journey. So this is what happened.
Hmm.
Wrote Scarlet Yearnings, Scarlet Birthright was born. I go and I had to send I wanted to send the manuscript to Simone Camps asked for it. So Paperbase
Yes.
wants to read your story, right? And and I sent it to her an e-copy. And so by the time I got to Trinidad, she had read it.
Hmm.
And I asked her, what was her view? And she says, well, I wanted to know more about Margaret. And oh, even before that, when I was going through editing, my editor, she said, I wanted to know more about Heather because she was the daughter, the other
Mm,
daughter in her
mm,
family's
mhm,
relationship, right? So
mhm.
it's like almost everybody can see themselves in the book at different,
Yes.
and so she actually influenced me putting more of Heather into the book before it got released. And then when Simone told me she felt that she wanted to know more about Margaret. I thought, okay. And that's when I wrote. So it wasn't immediate. You are just fine. You're discovering it as you need to. There's a divine order. And
I,
in the next book, Beyond First Glance, you have influenced that because the first story is going to be about, it initially was going to be about Mary at
mhm,
that table, at that
mhm.
event. So it's that event again. But because you asked, I put more of Cecil in there.
Just drizzling some Cecil in there, man. Because no, and here's the thing too. One of the things that you had mentioned, and this is why I think one of the things that you mentioned about giving the characters grace means so much. Um,
Yeah.
in the book, one of the things that Mary tells Jerome, or rather, and Cecil, they have this conversation and they say, here's what, he sends money. And I think in some instances, he thinks that money is a love language he's providing for his daughter. He sends it and that's what he knows. And they tell him, or they have the conversation to tell him that she needs more. She needs more emotional support. She needs more of his presence, etc. And I think this was interesting. And at first I was like, okay, I mean, what they're saying is making sense. I mean, he should just do it. But at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, I mean, like, where does he know how? I mean, he has to draw from what he doesn't know. He has to figure things out. And when I went through the book the third time, I was like, you know what?
You bless me.
Yeah, it's like, you know, I'm feeling a little bit of, I mean, I'm not justifying or saying things are okay, whatever, but I'm seeing that he's using the tools that what he has, and what he has isn't much because at the same time, he isn't taught much from his father either. So I mean, so he has to dig and from what he doesn't have, and he has to put his place, you know, outside of his comfort zone and a whole bunch of stuff. And because of that, I'm like, you know what, this thing is a lot bigger than I thought it was the first time. And I'm like, you know, this
Mhm.
iceberg thing, you can't escape the iceberg effect with your books, Scarlett. You can't escape the iceberg effect. So so yeah, I
And
mean,
there's always there's this thing about silences as well, because I know, at least for me, when I grew up in Trinidad, that you don't talk a whole lot. You show your love through
Yeah,
providing, whether it's financially as a man, or cooking and providing a home as a woman. Um, and But right? Because there's a line that I was deliberate in putting into Scarlet Birthright, where Mary is thinking, or not wanting to think, that Jerome actually is a lot like his father, because his father doesn't do certain things. And he was around, but and I remember that from my own, growing up, my grandfather was always there.
yes, yes.
But that conversations, different things never happened, so how was he to know? How was he to know? So,
Yeah, yeah, and that's where the grace comes in, I guess. Yeah,
hmm
I mean, like I said, you could be angry about certain things. You might want to do things differently, but at the same time, if you're given like a second chance with the same tools, etc., you might find yourself making the same decision. So,
yeah,
so yeah,
yeah. And I think healing comes, so I just want to make another plug for people who might be thinking about stories that they might want to tell.
hmm
Um, there is a writer that I write with during Fellowship of the Griot. His name is Donnie Moreland. He mostly writes poetry. But he published a book this year as well. Um, my father never taught me to write a love song. And in that, he really explores just not getting that, and this affecting how he moves through the world. So it's not only that, so I want to also say that if your parents don't give it to you, that doesn't mean that you can't have it or you can't learn it as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
So I do want to say that this was just one story, but there are many other stories where um, the children, the boys, the men do actively try to be very different from the example that they may have seen.
yeah, yeah. Well said. Well said. In terms of preparing for this interview, what I did is I actually listened to the audiobook a couple of times now. What affected the decision to choose this medium to get the word out about your book?
Because me, I
Mhm.
love audiobooks. I love listening to stories. Uh, the first audiobook that I listened to was performed by Colin Firth,
hmm
Bridget Jones' Diary,
Yeah,
and it hooked me. It was one of those that had the music in the background, and he performed the book. I was completely into it. I forgot that he was Colin Firth. I was completely into the story. And the wonderful thing about hearing the stories, that number one, you know how the names and the words are supposed to be pronounced, right? Many times when you're reading, you may put your own interpretation, but you actually hear what the perhaps the author intended.
yeah, yeah.
But I loved listening to audiobooks. And I listened for a long time before I started writing. Um, I was telling a good friend recently that I would listen. I lived in Atlanta at the time when I started listening to audiobooks, and driving, we had to drive everywhere. So it was always in the car, it was always on. And they made for amazing road trip fodder, trapping your husband in the car with a spicy audiobook. Nothing like it. It's really great. So when I produced my books, I knew that I wanted voice actors who could really bring the stories to life. In the first one, for Scarlet Yearnings, I use um, Jasmine Kirkwood, and she was a new to the field as well, but she
Yeah.
was amazing and able to do all those different voices for 12 different stories, and to bring it to life was amazing to me. And then for the second one, it was important that I have Caribbean narrators and voice actors. And so there's this platform called voices.com, and I really just put the offering out there. I had a very small budget, so I put it out there. And lo and behold, Richard Raghubar Singh responded to my ad.
Yeah.
And what happens is, all the people who want to do the project with you send you samples of reading a part of your story. And when I heard him, I knew he's Trinidadian. He knows how to bring this to life. And he was amazing. He absolutely performed the Scarlet Birthright very I couldn't ask for anything more. And then for the female voices in Scarlet Birthright, I also wanted a different experience. And so La Georgia Chambers, who did this wonderful art for me as well. Um, she she is Jamaican, but I thought that she as well has so many voices that come out of her in such a beautiful way.
Yeah.
And she was able to give such a different angle to each one of the characters in the book. Margaret, Trisha, Mary. It was amazing. I couldn't ask for a better team. I would absolutely work with them again. And a last thing, because I wanted it to be authentic, I never like when Caribbean stories are told by somebody who's not from the Caribbean, because it just takes you out, because the way they say the words, it's like they can't say Polori. They can't say it in the way that we say
Like
it. So it takes me out
Sawa,
of the
you know?
story.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, right?
Yeah.
It takes you out of the story. So it was really important to me for Scarlet Birthright to have Caribbean narrators.
Yeah, and I can understand that because I mean, being from Trinidad, being from the Caribbean, I can appreciate that. And I think keeping it authentic like that is just like, those routines that you find close to your home and stuff. I mean, it,
Trin City and Queens.
yeah, yeah, it's not the same. Persons may say it, persons may make it, but it's not quite the same. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, One of the things about the book that I thought was kind of refreshing as well. I mean, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine some years ago, and we were talking about well, at the time I wasn't like a bear person. I wouldn't go out and have a bear. And then he would be like, "Well, Kevin, why don't you do that?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean, I'm not a drinker kind of guy or anything." And he's like, "I think you're looking at maybe you should look at it differently because when it is that you go out and you have a beer with someone, true, it's an alcohol thing, but some persons, after one or two beers, you get a lot of honest conversation out of persons. The thing is, the things that you most of the times when you meet them, they will be more controlled in what it is that they say. But after one or two beers, you'll get a level of honesty that you get from them that you won't get from them if it is that they didn't drink. Now, why I bring this up is because in the book, there comes a time when Jerome passes. Spoiler persons. I mean, I don't mean to, spoil
Read
it.
the book first.
Read the book first, but there is a time when Jerome does pass and he meets Trisha, not his daughter, but Trisha, the mother of his child. And they have a conversation, a very frank and honest conversation. And, it was kind of, I don't know I'm trying to think of a way to describe it, but it was just kind of sad to me that you had to wait until the afterlife,
Yeah.
to have that level of honesty. And I mean, I thought about the bear thing, and I'm thinking, who knows, maybe if they had one or two bears, the honesty might have come out. But I mean, that's just me being
Yeah.
ridiculous. But
Yeah. I think what I also really clear about in this life is that, and I think you mentioned it earlier in the interview, um, you never, it never, you people, this concept of running out of time is very much a part of our human existence, yeah, our human way of being. And I think in the book, Trisha, the daughter, ran out of time, right? She was waiting, until a certain time to do certain things. Um, and then I don't think that, and actually, I got that concept from my sister. So my sister, who might be Heather, in other words, um, she grew up with my father, and I remember my son wanting to know more about his grandfather.
yeah,
And so we went out to tea, the three of us, four of us actually, my older sister as well, went out to tea, and my sister, my younger sister, said to me that our father always thought that he would have more time. And, our father died unexpectedly. He was very young. We've both outlived him in years. But I really liked when she said that. I thought that was really powerful. It was insightful for me, um, because I think that that's so true. We wait. And so I think that I wanted to represent that. So
Yeah.
you're right. You're right, Kevin. It's a pity, but it is the way that it is. Yeah. That, and I hope that it's also mm, an idea that might resonate with people who might be waiting or who might be avoiding or who might be otherwise delaying conversations that
Yes.
they just do it. Even for, I know this is not therapy, Kevin, but even for my grandfather, like when my actual grandfather, I think back that for many years we didn't talk, for something very stupid. And then he got, and I guess he played out in my book too, because my actual grandfather developed prostate cancer and died very quickly. But we spoke just before, thankfully, just before he passed. But I remember regretting that I wasted so many years, you know.
Yeah.
And in hindsight is always 2020. But I still wanted in, so Scarlet Birthright to me is um, this whole idea of of leaving everyone in the story whole in some way was important for me. And Trisha and the mother and the father, I wanted them to have some sort of closure, this idea of closure. Last thing, I do introduce this concept, a very African continent centered, or even indigenous centered concept that debt is not the end, that you do connect. Um, and I wanted that. So I did a lot of research for the third part of Scarlet Birthright
Yeah.
around the Akan, you know, tribe or culture in Ghana. And I love this concept of someone that shepherds you from this world to the next. And I also wanted to introduce that to especially people in Trinidad who may not ever have learned about African um, culture, religion, spirituality in a positive way. So that was, and I do try to bring that into a lot of my writing. Ancestral memory of the possibility that it doesn't end with death.
Okay. I mean, it's a really fitting, well applied concept because again, like I said, it gives me, the reader, a degree of closure because I mean, Trisha says, I know I'm spoiling it a little, but it's just that,
But you're not spoiling it because I think everyone who reads it, even because so after your third time, you're getting.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
I think that even if you know the story, that reading it for yourself, I think each reader gets a very different view. It is stunning to me how people have different interpretations based on their own experience, which is a blessing to me. That is wonderful when people are able to see themselves,
yeah,
even if it's not a direct story, but they see themselves in the story.
yeah, yeah. Okay, I want us to change gears a little because I know that, one of the main reasons we were talking was because of Scarlet Yearnings, Scarlet Birthright. But again, me being fast, or for the persons who not sure what fast is, let me rephrase that. I was a bit curious, so I visited your website. And
Makushas, makushas.
so it's there. And I saw two books. I mean, I saw three books, and I think I mentioned the third one, the store details about Margaret, which I mean, yeah, I'm looking out for that.
And
And
it's rough. Just in a full disclosure, that is a rough copy. I did it because of the conversation I was having with Simone.
mhm,
So it hasn't been edited. It hasn't like so I think a lot of the um I write as the things come to me and it may not be in sync with a lot of the things with with many things that are in the main story.
Yeah, yeah.
So take it with a grain of salt. This is the rough
Draft.
outline, the rough draft, pre-edit, pre-beta read of the story. But I wanted for the folks who are interested in Margaret's story to hear how I think about her and how I think about her before, during, and after her husband's death. Yeah.
I mean, that's a really great marketing strategy, the hype and everything. I mean, again, the strategic
Teaser,
storyteller.
teaser,
Yeah,
teaser.
yeah, yeah. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, strategic. Um, the other book, well, the other books that got my attention were Beyond First Glance. I mean, you care to give some
Yeah.
details about that?
Yes. So that is the fulfillment of Scarlet Yearnings. So Scarlet Yearnings, as I mentioned before, is was really a collection of 12 short stories. Didn't think it would go anywhere until my readers started demanding more.
Mm,
Scarlet Birthright is the first story that came out of it, but initially it was just supposed to be an answer to Scarlet Yearnings.
hmm.
Beyond First Glance is really the other side of the story. So it's continuing. It's either, for some stories, it's continuing the story that started in Scarlet Yearnings.
Yeah, yeah,
And then in some instances, it's giving the other character voice. If theirs came through in my head, so I gave the other character's voice. In other instances, it's a retelling of the the story fulfilling a little bit more. So one of the stories in there was 7 Years, Seven Truths, and that one it was wildly staccato. It's a musical term that is sort of like is almost like pricks of the story, and I try to fill it out a little bit more.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and then and then there are some stories that I don't think were as people don't talk about them as much from the first book. And
Hmm.
so I opted not to continue those and to introduce another story in the new one. And then the bookend of Scarlet Yearnings was almost like a no, no, a novelette length story. And that one finished. And so I have another story that I'm debating between two stories. For this second book, Beyond First Glance, Scarlet
Yeah,
Yearnings Beyond First Glance, my son, D. James Joseph, is editing it, doing the first edit for
yeah,
me. He's
yeah,
very tough. But he had a lot of choice words to say about the story that I'm bookending this one with, and so
yeah.
I'm giving it some thought. I do have another one in the hopper. What I have the beta reader program is going on now, so I'm likely to give the two stories that I may end with and ask my beta readers which one resonates more with them and see what comes out of that. I love when readers also shape the direction of the stories. I'm doing that more deliberately this time. So yeah, that I'm hoping to get through the beta reader program by January. I'm
Mhm.
only taking applications this month, and then they'll have like 2 months to read it, a month
Okay,
and a half to read it, and give feedback. And then I go to do the edits, and then I go to editing, and then I release. So it's likely going to come out in June of next year is my target.
okay, okay.
But yes, that Beyond First Glance is that whole thing, right? You have Love at First Glance, which was Scarlet Yearnings, Stories of Love and Desire. And then this second book is What Comes After, or, after the happily ever after. What does that mean
Ah,
in real life?
no, no, and I really like, and I said it before, and I know it's an unpopular opinion, but I like these books because, like I said, persons teach you about math, chemistry, physics, etc. But there aren't many books that teach you about relationships, etc. And sometimes it's not always clear cut, and sometimes you just learn from examples of other persons. And I think that's why I like these books here, because not these books, sorry, these stories that you put forward, because a lot of them
Mm.
they're true to life in that, again, no beginning, no middle, no end, no happy ending, no hero, no villain, situation, scenarios, people making decisions, and that's life.
You do the best you can at that moment.
Yeah, and just one more question about one more of your books because we're very close to December, and I see that you have a book titled Love in the Dark, and it's like it's holiday themed. I mean, you have it on your site. We're getting close to December, so I cannot not ask about it. So please
I
give us some details.
know. Certainly. So this is really a long short story. So what I would say, it's a long short story. It's only available in ebook. It's and two things. I love producing stories for my readers to consume. So
Hmm.
when people go to my website and they join the Scarlet Collective, they get access to a lot of my fiction. Um, and every year I do a sort of Christmas themed story,
Hmm.
but it's that whole thing we're coming back to from the beginning, right? How do you get your story out there and getting more people to consume? And so, as usual for me, the very sweet, over the top, perfect love story is not what I do.
I
I
think
do.
yeah, we've gathered that. We've gathered that.
It's not what I do. So I thought, well, let me do another short story and let's make it. This particular one is about, it starts with a blackout, right? Those do happen in the US as well. This one, the idea came from when I also lived in Connecticut. People say, how many places has she lived? Only one place in Sour Trinidad, but many places in the US. I was in Connecticut, and when we first moved there, it had a huge storm, like in October, when the leaves were still on the trees. So it was really tough because the trees couldn't stand the weight of the snow, so it fell on a lot of the overhead electrical lines, big blackout. And I thought, well, let me start the story there, but also metaphorically and actually, it was a point of view of a blackout, and um she's thinking divorce, right? The wife. And then all of a sudden, the husband and wife are trapped in their house during a blizzard. What happens? And so it was over the course of a weekend. And so this story bloomed, Love in the Dark. And again, it's just my offering at the end of the year. I'm not publicizing it a lot. It's available. It's going to be released. Actually, you're always on time, Kevin. It's actually going to be released on the 20th of November, um, and just in time for the holidays. But it's just another way for people to get acclimated to my type of storytelling,
Hmm.
and the way that I may tell a story. Um, she does cook jerk chicken, but it's not evident where she's from, or where he's from. It's just two people at a particular junction in their relationship.
Yeah.
And yes, Love in the Dark, a holiday romance for grown-ups is what I'm calling it. But it will be available on Amazon. It's like 99 cents US. And it's really just an introduction to reach more people with my storytelling.
Okay, again, you see the strategy. See, I mean, again, strategy again. All right. Oh, as we wrap up at this point in time, can you give us any details as to where it is that we can contact you or where can we get access to your books should we want to? Of course we want to.
Absolutely.
Of course we
Of
want
course
to.
you want to.
Yeah.
You want this. So listen, if you're in Trinidad, Paper-Based Bookshop, St. Clair, Scribbles and Quills in Chaguanas, both those places will ship anywhere in Trinidad and Tobago, anywhere. And they have copies of my books. They have copies of Scarlet Yearnings, Scarlet Birthright. And I have another book. It's a motivational journal that I would say goes along with Scarlet Birthright.
Hmm.
And that's called Rhythms of the Soul. And those three books are available from those bookshops in Trinidad. In Tobago, Heritage Haven at the Esplanade, and then also Shore Things in Lambeau.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
also have copies of all three books. You can get it there. And then if you prefer, Amazon.com has all the books as well. And then anywhere you are in the world, Kevin, anywhere. Any bookstore, you walk into the bookstore, you say, I want this book by Scarlet Ibis James, and they can order it for you. It may not be in stock. So whether it be Barnes and Noble or your little bookstore down the street, they can order it from their distributor because my books are available wide. And so I would say that Trinidad and Tobago probably has my biggest following, and followed by the US. And then strangely enough, or beautifully enough, Australia, the UK, all of these places are where finds my book. And interestingly enough, as far away as Germany, Spain, France, everywhere. And links to a lot of those places are available at scarletibisjames.com. You can find my social media connects there. You can join my Scarlet Connect collective, and I am available to listen to all the feedback that you may have, positive or negative or otherwise. Um, I take it all. I may not act on a lot of it, but I love hearing how these stories affect people. Um, and yeah, scarletibisjames.com if all else fails.
Okay, okay, all right. Thank you very much for your time, listeners. You've heard it from you've heard it from her herself, where you can get copies and where you can get in touch with her. So that pretty much brings us to the end of things. Miss James, thank you very much for your time, making yourself available. The conversation, as always, is fantastic because we always get more and more the more that we dig into your writings.
Mm.
So,
This was a pleasure. This was a pleasure. So much fun with you today, Kevin. Thank you. Thank you for all you do for the bookish community globally, for the Caribbean bookish community. Yeah?
okay, well, I'm really glad that the word could get out about books like yours because, like I said, it really provoking, thought-wise, and really insightful. So again, thank you.
Have a fabulous day.
Okay, you as well. For listeners who want to follow Scarlett's journey, hunting down roti, swing to calypso, crafting stories that pulse with ancestral knowing, connect with her via her website or social media details found in the notes below. Scarlet Birthright is available now. Beyond First Glance is coming soon. And this December, when we're all contemplating new beginnings, Love in the Dark will ask us, is love at 40-something worth fighting for? Thank you, Scarlett, for believing that second chances are harder and more beautiful than first love, and for showing us that sometimes the bravest thing is choosing to stay and do the work.